G'day guys, welcome back to another video. Tonight I want to talk about Brownlow Medal Night. Now I put out a TikTok a little while ago saying that I still felt that Nick Daicos could still win the Brownlow despite missing the last 3 games and obviously most of the 4th game against the Hawks, I believe it was, where he got injured. Met with a few mixed responses. A few people thought the Bont would be the best chance to win it. Some saying Rosie was a good chance to win it. And Christian Petrarca as well from the D is a good chance to win it as well. But it got the better of me, and I thought I would just go through the stats of the players and just have a look at it from a very, I suppose, simplistic view of stat line and just have a bit of a guesstimate as to how many votes I think each player could get and see how close we get to the mark with the Brownlow count. Now, obviously, I haven't watched all of these games, so I can't factor in the impact each player actually had on the contest of the game. I'm simply going by their stat line, if they won or lost, and weighting that into the factor as well, and just kind of trying to follow some typical trends we see with the AFL vote counts on the Brownlow night. So with that said, let's take a look. The main focus is on Daicos because I do firmly believe he can win the vote count. And on the numbers I've run, they do look quite ridiculous on the surface, so I am prepared to cop heat on it across all the players, not just Daicos. But I do think all these players played really good seasons and may not have a lot of votes taken off them, and they're well-known names, so I don't know if it's that far-fetched. So with that said, let's have a look at Daicos' stats and see what you think, and then we'll compare it to some others at the end. Alright, so as I said, I have gone through each of Daicos' games, game by game, to try and get a bit of a more accurate gauge on the votes I think he might get. Like I said, I haven't watched all of these games, so Collingwood fans may beg to differ, and AFL fans in general may beg to differ, but this is just my best guess. So we'll run through rounds 1 to 7. I've got him down for 2 votes versus the Cats with 35 disposals, 7 marks. 3 votes in round 2 versus Port. 2 votes in round 3 against the Tigers. 2 votes in round 4 versus the Lions in their first loss for the year, but I mean, he still had 38 disposals and 2 goals, so it's hard to argue against that. 3 votes in round 5 versus the Saints, 42 touches, 7 marks, 856 metres gained. Lock it in, Eddie. Round 6, I've got him down for 3 votes versus Essendon, 40 disposals and 2 goals again. I think that's a no-brainer. 0 votes in round 7 versus the Crows. He only had 27 disposals. I think this was a tight loss, so my thinking on this is he was probably about the 5th highest disposal winner, and when gamed kind of within 10 to 15 points, there's typically a blend of votes across both teams, unless there's been some absolute standouts, like I'm talking 5-6 goals plus and things like that. So I think there's going to be a couple of Crows players who might get in there, as well as the higher possession getters for the Pies on that particular day. So that's why I got him down for 0 votes for round 7. So, but a cracking start for Daicos. I don't think this is beyond the realms of possibility either. So we'll take a look at the next bracket of games. All right, so now let's take a look at rounds 8 through to 14 for Nick Daicos. I've got him down for 2 votes versus the Swans with 25 touches and 5 tackles. 3 votes in round 9 versus the Giants, another 41 disposal game if you don't mind, and 3 marks. In round 10 versus the Blues, I've got him down for 2 votes. In round 11 versus the Roos, I've got him down for 2 votes. In round 12 versus the Eagles, I've got him for 3 votes with 30 disposals and 3 goals. Round 13 versus the D's was a loss, and even though he got 27 disposals and 1 goal, again, based on sort of stat lines across both teams, there were players ranked higher than him in those areas. Not to say, like I said, not to say that his impact on the game wasn't far greater, and maybe that does jag him a 1. I didn't see it, so I couldn't really base my vote off that. But based on the statistical data, I'm going with 0 votes for that one. And round 14, obviously the bye, so 0 votes there. We'll take a look at the next bracket of games. All right, so we've got rounds 15 to 21 here for Nick Daicos. Gone 3 votes for him versus Adelaide, 37 disposals, 1 goal. Round 16 gave him 3 votes versus the Gold Coast, 36 disposals and 1 goal. He's a freak, isn't he? Round 17 versus the Bulldogs, 2 votes, 29 disposals and 2 goals. Again, there was probably a lot of players that were kind of ranking above. That's going to be a tricky one, I think. Round 18, 3 votes versus the Dockers, 36 disposals and 1 goal. Round 19 versus Port, 25 disposals and 1 goal. That could be a 0. again, I think that was a close win, so there was a bit of a, I think there'll be a blend of players from both clubs featuring in those votes. Around 21 votes versus Carlton in the loss, 28 disposals. Again, that may be a reach, but I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility getting a vote. And then obviously from round 21, he only played the early stages of the game before copping that injury. So you obviously won't get any votes for round 21, and he won't get any votes for the remaining games for the season as well, of course. But I'll bring up the last slide, which will just give you a total vote count based on the numbers that I racked up. So as you can see here, we've got the final summary, including those last few games, as I mentioned, that are not going to get him any votes. So I've actually got him on a total possible votes for 2023 on 40. And I know that seems astronomically high and almost unprecedented in some aspects, but I really don't think it's that far-fetched, because a lot of these games as well that I've got him down for 3 votes, he's actually been polling like perfect 10s in the Coaches Awards and things like that as well. So it's not like it's that out of the ordinary to be saying, yep, 3 votes, even though it's a ridiculous amount. And this is why I think he might have done enough to win the Brownlow this year, even after missing the last 4 games, well, 3.5. So, like I said, I've gone through and done the numbers for Bontempelli, Connor Rosie, and Christian Petrarca as well. I won't go through the list like that because it was quite a bit of work involved, but I'll bring up their totals that I come up with for those guys, and you'll see that there's one player there in particular that I think is a genuine chance to close him down, and it's going to come down to the wire in my opinion. So I'll bring up those players now, and I'll show you the votes that I come up for those guys too. All right, so as you can see, I've popped up here the other votes for the remaining players that we're talking about today. So Daicos on 40, like we went through just beforehand. Bontempelli only had on 26. Now, I know a lot of people might be a bit up in arms about that. And I suppose a lot of people were saying that he was the one who was going to steal it from Daicos because he had a good back half of the year, which is true. His back half of the year was very good, and he will probably get quite a few 3s there. But if you go back and look through the stats, his front half of the year was actually quite poor, and probably is going to get quite a few 0s in the first sort of 6 to 8 games, and on the flip side, Daicos is polling big numbers there. So that's where he's going to pull ahead. And I don't think the Bont's going to have enough games up his sleeve to pull it back in, to be honest. Rosie, I've got down as 30 votes. Again, his back half of the year was much stronger in the calculations I had compared to the front half of the year. And he also had Zach Butters was obviously competing very heavily with him for votes as well. So some of them may swap compared to what I had written down. So that's a good chance to fluctuate. But the one that kind of surprised me a bit, and the one I reckon it could go down to the wire with, is Christian Petrarca. So I've got him on 38 votes, which it literally came down to the last 2 games. I think his second last game, I only had him getting 1 vote in round 23, and in round 24 I had him down for 2 votes, round 22 0 votes, and round 21 2 votes. So that's how I had his last 4 games panning out. And again, he's got obviously Clayton Oliver, Max Gawn, Viney, players like that who are going to take votes off him at some point, but he might get some back from them as well that I just haven't factored in, just based on pure impact on the actual game itself, which I haven't been able to measure. So, like I said, I understand. I know that these are really high sets of numbers, like to see a final 4 of 40, 38, 30, 26, and there may be others that jump up in between, like a Lockie Neal might jump up as well, potentially. I know it seems crazy, and I'm prepared to cop heat over it. And like I said, it's literally just looking at the stat lines for the game and factoring in a few different things to weight things certain ways to come up with those numbers. But that's the Brownlow prediction. That's how I think Daicos can still win the Brownlow this year. It's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out, and let's see how close I can get to the numbers. Let me know in the comments below what you think all these players are going to poll, and we'll see who closest to the pin is on Brownlow night. Catch you for the next one.